Welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football update channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday night, the 15th of March 2026. It's just 4 minutes past the top of the hour of 11 p.m. here in Kampala, Uganda, and I hope you guys are all okay. I hope you guys are all okay. It's been quite the action-packed weekend. Right when we started it off, from actually throughout the entire week, because there's been games literally every single day of the week throughout this week. So, but I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope you guys are doing all right. And you had a wonderful Sunday. Of course, some results have been very unpleasant, depending on what side of the aisle you fall on, because for Liverpool fans, I'm particularly sure you're not pleased with that draw against Tottenham Hotspurs, while the day kicked off with joy for Manchester United fans in their fight for the top four, because they beat up against the top four rival to ensure that they continue with the lead on that side of things, or on the in the race for the top four, because among the teams that are leading that, Barcelona 5-2 Sevilla. I mean, there's a saying we say, we normally use in football banter, or in general society terms. It's, you know what happens when a computer loses its operating system. So that's what we usually, when we put it in Luganda, it makes more sense. But we usually say, oh, Yaika Windows. So I would say Sevilla, Yaika Windows. Sevilla lost its operating system, because, I mean, I watched them get obliterated just in the first half, and then subsequently, very early on in the second half, and they could only pick up 2 goals for a consolation. But Barcelona were really, really brilliant on the day, I must acknowledge, just as much as Real Madrid had been the day earlier against Elche. Adagula, Fede Valverde, among the others, are there on target. So really, it's been, I think, it's been quite a dream weekend for both sides in terms of winning, for those that are in the title race. And I do not think any of those teams would want to drop any single point between now and when the El Clasico is played for the reverse fixture. Please, Pedri, let us know, when is the next El Clasico, and when will it be played? What match day will it be? Because that's also very significant, because the reason as why it's very significant is because we are coming to the tail end of the season. When you look at most league tables, you'll find that many leagues have at least now either 10 games left to play, they have 9, some have 8, and things like that. So relatively, I do not think there's any single league in the major top 5 leagues across Europe that has more than 10 games left to play at this point in the season. So that's what makes it of significance for us to understand what match week will it be for the vast fixture of the El Clasico, in that regard. So, but anyways, guys, I hope everything has been all right with you. I will talk about Manchester United's playmaker in Bruno Fernandes, because what a player. I think arguably he is the best number 10 there is in world football at the moment, or he is the most effective number 10 that there is in world football, because maybe being overall best could be subjective, but in terms of being effective, I do not think there's anybody that is outnumbering him. We'll also, in that regard, we'll perhaps by extension talk about one of the less spoken about player, but very effective, very good, and I do not think he gets the PR that he deserves, and that's Michael Olise from Bayern Munich. Yesterday, we saw what happened with Bayern Munich. They were held to, or they managed to hold Bayer Leverkusen to a 1-1 draw, despite Bayern Munich finishing that game with 2 players less, following red cards to Luis Diaz and, but prior to that, to Nicholas Jackson. You say good luck to Joan, and I hope to see Barcelona further flourish. All right. Thanks so much for the wishes. So really, that's what has a part of what has transpired. So we're going to be going through it all. But I wish to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers, those of you that have recently joined the Football Tribe UG community. I can't thank you enough. Thank you for making us proud. Pedri, in case you're not aware, we did make 4,000 subscribers. Yes. So the dream lives on. But like I keep reminding you guys, it's at this point, it's the watch hours that matter the most. That's what we want to accumulate for us to move on to the next, to the next stage or level of in terms of building this community. Even the subscribers are very, very much welcome. And we do appreciate every single one of them that joins the community. And we implore you to go ahead, not to just subscribe, but also to watch our content. And, under the video section, under the short section, under the live broadcast, and give us your feedback. And then we'll keep the conversation going. Pedri says the remaining El Clasico this season will lie on the 10th of May, which is set to be match week 35. Barca further have Alves, Real Betis, and Valencia. Real Madrid would face Rio Oviedo, Sevilla, and Bilbao. Wow. Now, that's the significance of the Premier League, of the Spanish La Liga title race, that I do not think Barcelona would want to give Real Madrid any room of them cutting on those 4 points, on that 4-point lead by the time we get to the El Clasico, because it's a huge game. As unconvincing as Real Madrid may have looked in the grand scheme of things as thus far this season, you cannot write them off entirely that they can win the El Clasico, and perhaps that would tip the scales. Did you read the breaking news comment, the very first one? You say the breaking news. Yeah, there's no comment I've skipped. I read the scoreline for Barcelona Sevilla. I've read the good luck to Joan, and I hope to see my back further flourish. Although I did not understand which Joan you meant. Did you mean Joan Garcia, or you meant another Joan? There could be a special someone for you called Joan. Pedri, you can let the rat out of the bag, and is it no? Sorry, you can let the cat out of the bag and spill the beans and tell us more about this Joan, quote unquote, or as the Spanish people would prefer to call him, Joan. Anyways, so as we speak, I'm keeping tabs on the game between Lazio and AC Milan. The reason as to why I'm keeping tabs on that, beyond just the love for football, is because yesterday Inter Milan held to a 1-1 draw against Atlanta. I think it was a 10-man Atlanta. I think Atlanta got a red card in that one. I stand to be corrected. But with that draw, following or bearing in mind that the previous weekend or the weekend earlier, AC Milan had beaten up against Inter Milan in the Milan Derby, or the Derby della Madonnina, by 1-0. That goal scored by Pavis Estupinan. It meant that AC Milan reduced the 10-point gap between them and Inter Milan at the summit of the table to 7 points. Now, with that draw between Inter Milan and Atlanta, it meant that Inter Milan are now 8 points clear of AC Milan. But if AC Milan are able to beat up against Lazio tonight, it will mean that they get to reduce that deficit to 5 points, with still about possibly 9 or 10 games left to play, most probably 9. So that's the significance of that fixture that is ongoing. It did kick off at 1:15 to 11 p.m. between Lazio and AC Milan. So that's why it's really, really important. That's why it's really, really important. Meanwhile, speaking of which, Lazio have scored to make it 1-0 against AC Milan. So whatever the gods of Inter Milan they are praising must be working. This is Leopold Anke. Okay, good to have you, Leopold Anke. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful night. I hope you're doing well. And being that it's the first time I'm seeing you here, I hope you've already subscribed to the channel. Anyways, quickly, let's go through it. That's a beautiful goal. Michael Maynard could only watch it as be slotted into the back of the net. But let's go through the results from today in the Premier League and perhaps their significance or their implications on the Premier League table and what's to come next for some of these teams, because next weekend, there's going to be match day 31 of the Premier League released. The top two teams in the Premier League title race between Arsenal and Man City will be at Wembley, playing in the finals of the EFL Cup. So keep that in mind in as far as things go on that front. But in the Premier League, we had a goalless draw between Crystal Palace. Sometimes Crystal Palace and Leeds United. I don't remember particularly what my prediction had been, but I can't guarantee, but I did not think, I think I went for a draw, if I'm being honest. I need to review my own footage backwards. But a goalless draw, I don't think there's much to say about that, but it's a valuable point for both sides, perhaps more valuable for Leeds United, who would rather have won the fixture. Pedri is saying something. What is Pedri saying? Pedri says 66.6 compared to Victor Fonts. Oh, yeah, Pedri, bring us to speed with the Barcelona presidential election. In fact, because I was reading online a couple of minutes back, that as soon as the game finished, the players went to the polls to cast their ballots. So who is winning? I don't even know, to be honest with you. I don't even know who the other presidential candidates are beyond Joan Laporta, because, I mean, he's with Barcelona for as long as I can remember, maybe prior to that period. Was it prior to COVID or around the COVID-19 period? You had somebody else in charge. So how are the polls going? Joan Laporta and Victor Font. So who is winning? Oh, Victor Font is winning. Joan Laporta is winning. Okay, Joan Laporta is winning. Wow. What are the implications of that? Because to you as a Barcelona fan, what are the implications of that? Who would you want to win? And more importantly, because I remember a couple of days back, Xavi Hernandez came out of his media blockage and silence, and he did an interview and he said his piece. He said Joan Laporta has won the Barcelona elections. Well, are there any key promises that he made to you guys as Barcelona fans and the team at large? I was hearing that was it Victor Font who had made the promise that he would be bringing Brad Erling Haaland to Barcelona and things like that. So what are your sentiments? What are your views about this election and the fact that Joan Laporta has won? Were you in support of him? Were you for change? What does that mean for you as a Barcelona fan, really? So anyways, that's also very, very important, and an important part of football, or the other part of this conversation when it comes to European football. You say Font had promised to bring Messi back and sign Erling Haaland. He also said he would keep Hans Flick, and if he rejected, he would get Guardiola. Yeah. I had that rumor about Pep Guardiola, and I remember somebody mentioned it. There's a Barcelona fan. He's called who? Oh, I forget his name, but we normally engage with him in TikTok forums when we are debating and discussing football matters. And he mentioned this, that he had promised to bring back Pep Guardiola, and I was thinking to myself, I don't think it will be miraculous for Pep Guardiola to return to Barcelona, because in any case, he is Barcelona through and through. However, I don't think it would come as easy. Usually, Okay, not usually, because he only did it once. When he left Barcelona in 2011, he took a sabbatical. Before, was it 2011? No, 2012. When he left Barcelona in 2012, that was after the 2011-2012 season. He took a sabbatical of 1 year before joining Bayern Munich for the 2013-2014 season until 2016. So I think, having been at Manchester City for a decade now, and chances are there's still a big chance he stays on for the 11th year. That is, if it is, because it is his decision. The contract is on his side. He still has 1 year left to his current contract. Whether he will see out the remainder of that year, we'll wait to see. But I have this feeling, this sneaky feeling, that when he does leave Manchester City eventually, whenever he does, he could sort of take another sabbatical before he returns to the dugout. He could. And then there's been major reports suggesting that once he leaves Manchester City, he would want to transition to national team football. Guys, I don't even know why some managers like national team football. It's very boring, in my opinion, because other than actual tournaments like the Euros, like the World Cup, you're basically tied in qualifiers and they come far between. It's boring. You spend a lot of time going to watch games that involve players that you wish to, bring on board on your national team squad. And sometimes, especially for managers that are still in their junior years, I remember Uganda Cranes, not too far back, they had Jonathan McKinstry in charge, and he's a young manager, Scottish, I think, and things like that. Then you look at how Roberto Martinez transitioned to national team football. It felt quick, The same way you have Graham Potter, who recently extended his contract, by the way, with the Swedish national team until 2030. Just imagine you wake up and Xabi Alonso is on a national team, Steven Gerrard or Frank Lampard or Xavi Hernandez. It feels odd, in my humble opinion. It feels odd because I understand the stress of club football. I understand it. But also the stress of it is sometimes the beauty of it. Take the example of Mikel Arteta. Being a club manager is sometimes like being a president of a country. The amount of pressure it puts on you and the toll it takes on you, it's sometimes no wonder that some age or appear to age faster than they would have loved to. But yesterday, around the 80th minute mark, the pressure was so high or so intense for Mikel Arteta that he had to throw off his jacket in cold weather. And I remember saying this, that's what pressure does to you. You begin sweating when it's cold out there because it's difficult. I think it was Antonio Conte who said every match day he loses about 2 or 3 kilograms. How he regains them back, only God knows. But in other words, the point he was trying to drive home was the amount of pressure or stress a football match takes on you. Right from training the boys to preparing for the match, doing the analysis of it, organizing the tactics and how you want the team to behave, and then watching that play out in real action. And then, of course, the pressure is high when you're losing a game. It's worse when you're trying to win a title. And for Mikel Arteta, his pressure is a combination of multiple factors. First of all, the length of time he's been at the club, that's one. He's 6 years at the club and has gone into the 7th year. 2, the amount of resources that have been invested in him. 3, having finished second on 3 consecutive occasions, he is expected to win. Or the 4th time of asking is what he believes he should be getting over the line. And then there's that external pressure that comes from Arsenal fans, football enthusiasts, forget the Mikel Obis of this world, because that one, I don't know. Most recently, Mikel Obi made some comments, and if I did not watch him say these comments, I would have easily thought maybe it was a camel speaking, because I do not expect a camel to be as smart as a human being, to be honest. But anyway, let's not get into Mikel Obi's comments. So that sort of overarching expectation on Mikel Arteta to win, and his desire to show that this project that I told you would take this time has come to maturity, and these are the fruits of it, puts him under enormous pressure. So you could evidently see the pressure on him. I remember there was a foul that was called against Arsenal. Ebeleche Eze was involved. I don't remember the Everton player. And it looked like really a soft foul, or literally out of nothing. And he was so furious on the touchline. He was very animated, you know. So, but that's the nature of sport. That's the nature of sport. Anyways, allow us move on and get into the weekend results and their implications on the Premier League log, in as far as the table is concerned, in as far as the different pursuits are concerned, in terms of the league title, in terms of Champions League football, in terms of relegation. So Crystal Palace shared the spoils against a 10-man Leeds in a goalless draw. Goodmanson was shown the matching orders in the 50th minute of the first half. That's of stoppage time. The 50th minute of stoppage time of the first half. Maxence Lekwa was the man of the match in that game. So very, very interesting stuff in there. But when you look at the statistics of the game, Crystal Palace had 8 shots, had a total of 8. Sorry, they had a total of 12 shots, but their XG was 0.67. They dominated possession, basically because they had the one-man advantage going into the second half, but Leeds had a better XG of 1.12 there. Not that it matters that much, because what matters is crossing the ball into the back of the net, but they couldn't get through with that. Anyways, I'm moving away from that, because it was among the 3 games that kicked off at 5 p.m. East African time. And then the other game was between Nottingham Forest and Fulham. That one also ended in a goalless draw. By the way, there's been 3 goalless draws this weekend. The first came between Burnley and Bournemouth. Then in total, there's been about 5 draws this weekend, because today you had 3 draws. Later on, Liverpool and Spurs. Yesterday, West Ham and Man City. You also had that goalless draw between Bournemouth and Burnley. So you've had 5 draws, and only 5 games were won this weekend. I remember there's a weekend that we came out of and it had 7 draws. So it's not like it's a new phenomenon or a very big statistic. But 3 of them being goalless draws, that also is quite a bit telling. And because you also had 2 games that ended in 1-0 victories for Brighton and for Newcastle, respectively, then in other words, it's been a low goal scoring weekend, so to speak. Only Manchester United managed to score more than 3 goals this weekend. So, anyways, let's move on to Liverpool. Liverpool were held into a 1-1 draw against Tottenham Hotspurs. Dominic Szoboszlai scored his 50th goal straight from a free kick this season. And it's quite really, really impressive to watch. The other day I was being asked whether Dominic Szoboszlai is an exceptional talent when it comes to dead ball situations. And I said, he is good, but I do not think present day we have those exceptional free kick takers, the way you had the Juninho Pernambucanos of this world. He is doing really, really well. It will be the test of time in terms of consistency, how he can pull that off, that he will sort of put himself in exclusion of players like James Ward-Prowse, players like Dimitri Payet, players like Chelsea's Richard James. I know he's scored from a direct free kick once or twice this season. So for him to stand out, really, you'll have to do it consistently over a given period of time. That is what will separate him from the other players that appear to be good in dead ball situations. But that 18th minute goal from him did give Liverpool the lead. Unfortunately for Liverpool, they went on to fire the blanks for the rest of the game until the 90th minute when Richarlison scored to restore parity for Tottenham Hotspur. And I was a bit disappointed, not by Liverpool, but entirely by Liverpool in the first place, but more disappointed by Tottenham Hotspur once they scored to restore parity. As soon as they scored, they never saw it as an opportunity to go ahead and win the game. As soon as they scored, it was like a sigh of relief that they were going to settle for a point. I saw it with the behavior of their players, and I was thinking to myself, the mere fact that you've scored this late on in the game, I think it was 5 minutes of added time in the game, you can try and fight on and win this game. Because they wouldn't be the first team to do that. When you go back to Man United's victory against Arsenal, when you go back to their victory against Fulham, they scored some late goals. When you go back to Arsenal beating up against Newcastle at St. James's Park, you'll find an equalizer probably in the 80th minute, and then you had very late on Gabriel Magalhaes' goal that won them that game. So I wanted Tottenham Hotspur, as a team that is trying to fight against relegation, to show a bit more intent once they scored to restore parity. But they looked like as soon as they scored that goal, they were more willing to see out the game as was than them trying to fight and try to win it entirely. Because God knows how important, how crucial the 3 points would have been for them, But nonetheless, they will take the point, which is Igor Tudor's first point. We were all waiting for Igor Tudor's sacking had he lost today. And he has not lost. I do not know whether that game is his turning point or it will be merely what it was. Because it's not like Tottenham were exceptional, even though they had some good moments in the game. They kept Alson Ramsey-Becker in action. Liverpool dominated the key actions of the game. Riongo Moha had a couple of chances because he started ahead of Mo Salah. Cody Gakpo started. Jeremy Frimpong started. You had the likes of you had the likes of course, Szoboszlai. For me, in my individual capacity, I was calling for Szoboszlai, for McAllister to be dropped. But instead of dropping McAllister, he put Szoboszlai in the right back position, played Joe Gomez alongside Virgil van Dijk, with Andy Robertson starting. So Riongo Moha, Jeremy Frimpong started up front. So you had Florian Wirtz in there behind Cody Gakpo. Now, I'd want to suspect that some of the changes that he made in the wake of today's fixture was also to play a fresher team that could compete against a poor Tottenham side, but also bearing in mind their responsibilities that will be coming their way this coming week on Wednesday when they play Galatasaray at Anfield. And I think we're all looking forward to that run to the reverse fixtures of the UEFA Champions League, because there are going to be some nail-biting moments. I do envision some nail-biting moments in some games. Which game in particular, I'm not at liberty to say at the moment. We'll get to discuss that when we're discussing the previews of those respective games. But I would want to think that that was a school of thought for him. And it was nice to see Riongo Moha out there. He had a good game, an okay game. The finishing product was a bit lacking. He had a couple of attempts on goal that were off target, but yeah, a good game overall. Then on the other side, for all his stubbornness, he decided to go for a bit of a 4-4-2 kind of system. That's for Igor Tudor. Meanwhile, Lazio have gone into the halftime with that 1-0 lead against AC Milan. Remember, Lazio are under the charges of former Chelsea and ex-Napoli manager in Maurizio Sarri. He had a stint with them, left the club, and then did return. Then AC Milan are under the charges of Massimiliano Allegri, who is on his second stint with the with Milan. So Igor Tudor decided to retreat into a back four, which I thought was a good idea right from the onset. Kevin Danso, Radu Draxon, Pedro Porro, Dejat Space. And then he went with Soaz. He's called, Soaz. And then Matthias Tel, Pape Matza, Achai Gray. Of course, once again, their midfield felt lightweight because they've had so many injuries, really. They've had so many injuries, and they could only field what they could field. And then Rickerson and Dominic Solanke. So they started up front. And overall, their performance was much better than all their recent performances. Of course, Liverpool still edged, dominated some of the key aspects of the game, such as possession to the tune of 63% compared to Tottenham's 37%. Liverpool had 17 shots on goal compared to Tottenham's 13, although Liverpool only 4 of those were on target compared to Tottenham's 7. And it was a kind of game that was 50-50. I think I, for one, struggled to pick who would qualify for the man of the match. I did not feel that performances were exceptional. It was that kind of game, a 50-50 for you on any day. So, but it is what it is. In any case, but Dominic Szoboszlai was awarded with the man of the match accolade at the end of it. So, anyways, now the result itself does not help Liverpool at all in their pursuit of top 4, because that draw puts them at 30 games played. At 30 games played, they have 49 points. If they had won, they would have, moved level on points with Aston Villa, who lost to Manchester United by 3-1. We're going to get to that game itself. So there's that. Now, I saw a lay football fan asking online, why is it that it's only Arsenal that have played 31 games on the Premier League log? The one thing they forgot to ask themselves, why is it that Brentford is the only side that have played 29 games? Sometimes logic defies people, or people defy logic, whichever way you slice it. Anyways, moving on to arguably one of the biggest games of Super Sunday, and that was at Old Trafford between Manchester United and Aston Villa. Manchester United fans at Old Trafford have finally realized what I've been telling them ever since Casemiro, I think back in January, announced that he will be leaving the club at the end of the season. I've asked them who is going to be Casemiro's replacement. I've always made the case for Casemiro that they could use him for an extra year. Guess what? At the end of the game, they were singing that Casemiro, one more year, please. In other words, they would want him to stay for another year. Other than Bruno Fernandes, I think Casemiro could be Manchester United's best player, especially in the second part of the season. Maybe you could make a case for Bryan Mbeumo, but for me, I sort of feel that Bryan Mbeumo was first half of the season. But overall, in terms of importance and overall contribution, Casemiro for me is second to Bruno Fernandes. For all the goals that Manchester United have scored from set pieces, Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes have had a direct hand in them, either providing the assist or scoring the goal or providing the pre-assist in those occasions. Today was no different because Whereas the game was goalless at halftime. And it wasn't goalless because both sides were without their chances. They just could not bury them. So it's a corner kick. Casemiro rises the highest. He darts from sort of deep into the 18 yards box, makes the run into the 16 yards and heads that ball home. And it's 1-0. And then Ross Barkley, that was in the 53rd minute for Casemiro. And then Ross Barkley scored to restore parity in the 64th minute. While Matthias Cunha scored a beautiful goal with Bruno Fernandes providing a beautiful assist once again to make it 2-1 before Benjamin Sesko came off the bench once again to score because Aston Villa failed to deal with the ball in the area. They fumbled it and he struck onto it and he scored to make it 3-1. They could have easily scored 4, but there was a moment when Benjamin Sesko goes on the run through, and in his attempt to try and find Amadou Diallo on the back post, he passed the ball outside, basically. So, but with that burst of assists, for Bruno Fernandes this weekend, it has taken him to sort of it has taken him to 16 assists overall in the Premier League this season, and he is the player with the most assists with 16. Next to him is Ryan Cherki, who has as few as 8. So that is in comparison to the two players. So in other words, he has 8 more assists than any other player in the Premier League. It's tremendous. He's chasing the record held by Thierry Henry and Kevin De Bruyne for 20 Premier League assists in a single season. And given the trajectory he is on, I will not be surprised if he does beat that record. Then 2, with that second assist to Matthias Cunha, he's officially become the first Manchester United player in the Premier League era to provide more than 15 assists in a single campaign, because the highest number of assists for a Man United player were 15, and that was by David Beckham in the 1999 season, 1999-2000 season. Then next to him, I think should be Luis Nani da Cunha, the Portuguese international. He provided 14 assists in the 2010-2011 campaign. You remember Manchester United went on to win the Premier League title that season. Then David Beckham in the 1997-1998 season, he provided 13 assists, just as many as Antonio Valencia later on. I think in the 2011-2012 season, that is for Antonio Valencia. You remember who Manchester United signed, I think, from Wigan Athletic. He had come in to play as a winger, ended up playing more as a right back for the better part of his Manchester United career. And then also, Bruno Fernandes' records just do not end there, because he's been quite excellent ever since he joined Manchester United. He's been effective, because oftentimes you'll watch him and he will catch your eye, but not in a manner in which, let's say, a Lamine Yamal will capture your attention. That's not how you'll enjoy him play. Of course, that's not his mojo, but not the way an Iniesta would sort of impress you, not in a way Cesc Fabregas would impress you. I don't know if you get what I mean, but he's quite very effective in my opinion. He's not like a Wesley Schneider, you know. He's just him, very effective. So with that contribution, or with those goal contributions this weekend, it has also made him only the third Manchester United player to be directly involved in 100 goals for Man United and 100 assists. Because he has scored 105 goals for Manchester United and has provided 100 assists across all competitions. Those numbers are really, really tremendous. for any football player to be involved in. And then, of course, we know that the one with the most number of assists in Manchester United colours is Ryan Giggs. He holds that record. I think he had about 249 assists in his Manchester United career. So really, it's quite important. In the Premier League this season, he has a 23 goal involvement, because he has scored 7 goals and provided 6 assists. So you can see why the 31-year-old Portuguese international, who turns 32 in September, is really highly regarded at Old Trafford. And yet, if he had been at Man United for his entire career, perhaps you would think, well, sort of, that's about it. But he's been with them since 2020. I think he signed when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was still at the club, and he's been quite impressive, quite really impressive. So Ryan Giggs is the other player who scored 161 goals for Man United and provided 249 assists in his career. Then Wayne Rooney is the other. He scored 253 goals and provided 131 assists for Manchester United. So Bruno Fernandes joins them in that league with him at 105 plus 100 assists across all competitions in Man United colours. So it's really impressive for the Portuguese international. Quite. I must say, it's just superb. It's superb. Like I said, in my opinion, he's not. When he's on the ball, he's not going to dance about it the way a Ryan Chucky would. He's not that sort of player, but he's just effective. He's very effective, really. So, Man United fans, when you remember that he almost left the club in the summer, and it begs you wonder where Man United would be without him. But also, Matthias Cunha, he's really picked up. In recent times, he's more like the Cunha we saw at Wolverhampton Wanderers. The way he takes that ball in his stride and then he goes on to score, knowing that there's a defender incoming to put him under pressure. I think it was Enzo Konsa. So then Benjamin Sesko, I think he's scored 8 goals ever since the turn of the new year, or ever since Christmas, or the turn of the new year. I think he scored more goals possibly than any other player, or because Brad Erling Haaland in the last 17 games, he scored 4 goals. On the other side, Benjamin Sesko has scored 8 in 12. So it's really commendable. And Manchester United looked like Man United, very quick on the transition, counter-attacking football. They did not always deliver the final product, but they gave Aston Villa quite the run for their money. And I did fear for them in the long run, thinking that it could have easily ended worse than it appeared with the final score on the board. In terms of the key statistics, Man United pipped a possession to the tune of 53% compared to 47% of Aston Villa. They had 6 shots on target compared to Aston Villa's 2. They had 6 shots off target compared to Aston Villa's 5. So those are some of the numbers that really tell you about United's dominancy in that game and how good they really looked. They looked really impressive, which then put us to, for quite some time, although sporadically we've been, not sporadically, but in the aftermath, not based on the result, but in the aftermath of them losing to Newcastle, and prior to it as well, and then in this aftermath, the discussions are going to rage on amongst the Manchester United fan base and beyond on whether Michael Carrick should be given the Manchester United job. I don't know if we have any Manchester United fans on the forum to give us their thoughts about, what they make of Michael Carrick and whether they think he should be given the job. Earlier on today, I was in a TikTok forum, discussing Manchester United as a topic, as the key issue. And the same question was put to me, whether they should keep Michael Carrick. And I said, for me, it all depends on the kind of direction that Manchester United want to take. And until they tell us that kind of direction, we cannot know with absolute certainty which manager suits them and whether Michael Carrick should be given the job. However, I'd say give him the job. Now, I understand Manchester United fans are skeptical, saying, well, look what happened to us when we gave Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the job. It did not work out eventually in our favor. He ended up being sacked, and we were back to square one, or to where it all began before he even joined. And I understand that. But I also understand that managers are different. It could be that what failed with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it's Michael Carrick that gets it ticking. Then also, and this is a key factor, is what Manchester United legends think of him or make of him. Because if that class doesn't like you, you're going to find it difficult. Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Roy Keane. Those are the main characters. Recently, they've been joined by Wayne Rooney. They are never out of the media. Of course, many of them work as pundits, so they're basically right. It is their business to discuss the events of football. But when it comes to Manchester United, of course, they debate with that unique coat on that they played for the club. And all of them, as enlisted, are legends of the club in their own rights or respects. So you cannot take that away from them. Two, I know for a fact that Manchester United, according to their CEO, Omar Barida, he said their objective is to win the Premier League title in the 2027-2028 Premier League season. The question then is, becomes, if that is still the objective, because he said this, I think, when they appointed Ruben Amorim. If that is still the objective, then they are going to need a quick fix. In a quick fix, I mean a manager that they can accommodate next season, invest resources in him, improve the club, and possibly it will require them to finish within the top four, most preferably a third or second place. And then they identify whatever gaps they may have identified by the end of that season before going into the 2027-2028 season. Because if that is still the target, that means they have only one season left to build a squad that makes them competitive enough to challenge for the Premier League title. And then in that actual season of 2027-2028, they then challenge to go on and win it, or win it, as is their objective. Now, if that is still the objective, it is, in my humble view, I think you're better off keeping Michael Carrick. First of all, I'd make the argument that he's a known quantity. Two, the players appear to like him. They seem to be in sync. Then, he seems to be a good player manager. One-on-one, kind of. He goes about his business like the Carlo Ancelotti kind of style, the Zinedine Zidane kind of style. They're not overly obsessed with the tactics of the game. They are more concerned in managing player relations and emotions within the dressing room, managing egos and things like that. You know, it's not to say that they are not tactically aware of the game. They know what they're doing. They just do not obsess over the tactics. They're the kind of guys that will read the lineup and say, guys, get on there and give me your best game ever. This shirt means something. And that's it. And then they watch you on and maybe add you in a couple of minutes. Let's add more pace to it. Let's attack this flank because, you know, I feel that that player is vulnerable or weak and things like that. It's not because they don't know the tactics. They know them, but they're not tactically obsessed with the game. So that's the kind of manager that you need if your objective remains to win the trophy by the 2027-2028 Premier League season. Then, if you want to build a long-term project, in other words, you're seeking dominancy for a certain part of the foreseeable future. If you want to see the kind of Manchester United we saw in 2007, 2008, 2009, that one that won 3 Premier League titles consecutively, that won the Champions League Premier League title in 2008, that reached the finals in 2009, lost the Premier League title to Chelsea in 2010, reclaimed it in 2011, and also reached the finals of the UEFA Champions League. That kind of Manchester United. If that's the kind of Man United project that you want, then it may take you a bit of time to sort of build. For those of you that care to remember, Manchester United had last won the Premier League title in 2003 before they win it again in 2007. Because in 2005, and because in 2004 Arsenal won it, 2005 and 2006 Chelsea won it. And in between that time, Sir Alex Ferguson was building his team that eventually went on to dominate. So that took him 4 good years to build that team. So time is a factor. So if you want to build a team that is bound for that sort of dominancy, in retrospect, in my humble view, you're better off going with a tactical manager. It's not to say that the tactical manager cannot bring a quick success, depending on what squad you have when he walks in and how you invest in them. The same way we saw Jose Mourinho come in and win a couple of cup competitions. The good thing is that Man United have taken that direction before. When they appointed Louis van Gaal, when they appointed Erik ten Hag, and subsequently Ruben Amorim, they may have not given them the sufficient time they needed to build whatever they wanted to build, but the message we got from them making those managerial appointments was that they wanted to take that direction to build something. As we speak, Chelsea are going through that kind of process of building a team that will go on to dominate. While they are building, they've had some success, winning the UEFA Conference League, winning the FIFA Club World Cup in the summer. Look at Liverpool. When Jurgen Klopp walks in, that in October 2015, it took him time to build that team until they win the UEFA Champions League title in 2019. They win the league title in 2020. They're going to win the Carabao Cup, I think, in 2024. And then, of course, I think 2022, they win the FA Cup and the EFL Cup. So, in other words, we saw a dominant Liverpool side, although Manchester City were just a stride ahead of them because of Pep Guardiola and how best they had invested in their own team. But even Manchester City themselves, when they win their first league title, in their first Premier League title in 2012 under Roberto Mancini, it had taken them time building that squad because when they buy the club, Mark Hughes was in charge. And when he's in charge, they go on to bring in players like Craig Bellamy, Robinho, Emmanuel Adebayo, Kolo Toure, Gak Ritchie, etc., etc. I would want to suspect that the Pablo Zabaletas of this world came in around the time. Eventually, the Vincent companies, So they started building that project because soon after they take over, Mark Hughes was let go and Roberto Mancini came in and eventually wins them the league title. And when he walks out, Man United win it in 2012. Man United win it in 2013 and they reclaim it in 2014. When they reclaim it in 2014, They missed out on it in 2015 because it was an odd year. Leicester City won. Then, sorry, in 2015, who won? No, Chelsea won 2015 under Jose Mourinho. So they missed out on that one. In 2016, again, for those of you that remember, Jose Mourinho returns in the summer of 2013. So he builds his team 2013, 2014, and then he wins 2014, 2015 season. And then Leicester City win 2016. Then Chelsea under Antonio Conte win 2017. And then Man City go on to win 2 consecutive seasons, 2018, 2019. Now, Pep Guardiola found a good squad, and he added a couple of pieces to it because Kevin De Bruyne was there, Sergio Kun Aguero was there, Yaya Toure was there, David Silva was there, Vincent Kompany was there, you know. So they had the core of the squad, the spine of the team was there, you know. And then he added in a couple of players, the Ederson Morales, among others, Bernardo Silva, what's this? Benjamin Mendy, etc., etc. Kyle Walker, Raheem Sterling. In fact, I think Raheem Sterling was already there by the time Pep Guardiola joins. So they added the Leroy Sané's, things like that. So in other words, it takes time for you to build a team that is going to be dominant for a certain period of time. So if Manchester United want to take that direction, in my humble opinion, I'd rather they go with the direction of a tactical manager. And by the way, guys, the discussion or conversation we're having, I've already put some of these points out there for you in a video on what type of manager do Manchester United need. Go over to the channel and watch that video. Perhaps, let me see if I can look it up, and I leave for you the sort of I drop for you the link down in the comment section so that you guys can save it and possibly go watch it after the broadcast, you know. So I think that's the kind. So if you want a tactical manager, there's a couple of options for you. It's not a given that you'll get the most ideal candidate that you may want, but I would want to think that Man United are capable of getting any manager that they so wish. At least they are that big a brand. So that's the link to the video. The title to it is what type of manager do Manchester United need? And I more or less make the same points. So you have managers like Xabi Alonso, Xavi Hernandez, Enzo Maresca. You have Cesc Fabregas out there at Como, Julian Nagelsmann at the German national team. You have your Luis Enrique at PSG, whether he will be leaving to join Man United is another whole different story. But that caliber of managers, Roberto Di Zerbi, that cohort of managers. So if you want to build a long-term project, I say go that style. You know, build a competitive team and know that our target is this. In this period of time, we should be able to achieve A, B, C, D, but we'll keep building it brick by brick. So that's the wider conversation about Manchester United. So you will allow me leave it at that. Meanwhile, AC Milan and Lazio, it's still 1-0, so not much has changed in that game. So allow me move on quickly to the other results or other games. Osasuna are 2-0 behind against Real Sociedad at halftime, while Stade Rennes are 2-1 behind against Lille in the French League 1. So that's all action that is currently ongoing. In as far as Super Sunday's results are concerned, in the Spanish La Liga, Espanyol lost to Mallorca by 2-1. Real Betis and Celta Vigo shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw, while Barcelona, Rafinha scored a hat-trick as they won by 5-2 against Sevilla. 2 of those were penalties, and in the first half, and then Dani Olmo also scored in the first half, while also scored a consolation for Sevilla in the first half. But in the 6th minute after the restart, in the second half, Rafinha scored once again to make it 4-1. Then Joao Cancelo scored a beautiful goal to make it 5-1, and then he's called Jibril So scored to make it a 5-2. There he scored the other consolation for Sevilla. It was a beautiful game of football. Barcelona very dominant, as a part of this Sevilla side. Sevilla and Valencia are in the same sort of cohort. They fell off the wagon big time. Excuse me. Then in the German Bundesliga, Mainz 05 beat up against Werder Bremen by 2-0, while Union Berlin beat up against Freiburg by 0-0. VfB Stuttgart managed to beat up against RB Leipzig by 0-0, while Hellas Verona in Italy, in the Italian Serie A, lost to Genoa by 2-0. Pisa beat up against Cagliari by 3-1, while Sassuolo lost to Bologna by 0-0. Bologna shared the spoils with AC Roma in a 1-1 draw in the first leg of the round of 16 of the UEFA Europa League. Speaking of AC Roma lost to a 10-man Como by 2-1. Yes. No, sorry. Como beat up against the 10-man AC Roma by 2-1. Wesley Frank was sent off for a second booking in that game, while a penalty from Daniel Malen in the 7th minute had given AC Roma the lead. Then Dovikas scored to give, this is in the second half, to restore parity for Como before Diego Carlos scored to make it 2-1. I think Como nearly had the third, but because once they had that numerical advantage, they really used it to the good. Because in the end, they had about 7 shots on target compared to Roma's only 1, and they dominated possession to the tune of 66%. So they looked really brilliant. And that victory sort of left them in 4th place, or keeps them in 4th place with 54 points after 29 games played, with 9 games left to play. So that is what is happening there in the Italian Serie A. So Christian Pulisic just aimed for the rugby goal as they tried to find an equalizer in that game. So that's the Italian Serie A. Inter Milan are at the summit with 68 points. AC Milan second with 60 points. Napoli with 59 points. Como with 54 points in 4th place. Juventus in 5th place with 53 points, while 6th place is AC Roma with 51 points. Atlanta in 7th place with 47 points. Then in the relegation zone is Hellas Verona, Pisa, and Cremonese with 18 points for the bottom 2, and Cremonese with 24 points. Fiorentina is just 1 point above the relegation zone. They are yet to play. Their game will be on Monday Night Football. So those were the other results are from the Italian Serie A. Then in the French League 1, Strasbourg and Paris FC shared the spoils in a goalless draw, as did Le Havre against Lyon, while Toulouse beat up against Metis by 4-3. So all that was through Super Sunday. So guys, it's been such a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, Pedri, for having been part of the conversation. Thank you so much, Anne. K. So, and every single one of you that has been part of the conversation, those that liked, those that didn't like, those of you that watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended. We never take your time, love, and support for granted. Thank you so much. Keep doing us the absolute honor and favor, and watch as much content of ours as you can. Please, do us that absolute honor and favor. The more you watch, the more you like and comment and share, the more our content gets recommended to our audiences, other new audiences with similar tastes that would want to hear our views and opinions about the beautiful game of football. So allow me to call it a night, and I wish you a wonderful one. A blessed new week ahead. Bye-bye for now. Stay blessed.